Hello, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Cybersecurity Weekly. I'm your host, Fred Cobb, Executive Vice President and CISO at InfoSystems. Fortunate to have with me again today, Mr. Garrett Boyd, Senior Cybersecurity Consultant for InfoSystems. Welcome back to the show, Garrett. Glad to have you.
Thank you, Fred. Good to be here.
Yeah, Garrett's been with us on a few topics. We've been going through various discussions on the Center for Internet Security, Critical Security Controls. We've been stepping really sequentially through those. Today, we're up to control number 19 out of 20, and we're going to be talking about incident response planning, having a good incident response program, and really focusing on the actual incident response plan itself, the IRP, we'll call it. So let's talk a little bit about the IRP. Garrett, if you think about a living document that companies should have, in some cases for compliance reasons, it's a must-have. What are some of the elements that go into a really good quality incident response plan or IRP?
Yeah, okay. So the things that make up a good IRP certainly would be the types of scenarios that you might face as a company, what the bad guy's going to do to you, whether it be a ransomware attack, whether it be just a virus on a single endpoint. Whether it be denial of service, social engineering, those type of things should be definitely included in your IRP. Also, the roles and responsibilities of your team, your cybersecurity incident response team, or computer security incident response team. Definitely need to have the roles definitely divvied out so everybody knows what they're going to do in that event. You want to have proper communications. Who's going to talk to who?
Right.
Who's the key management stakeholders, and what are their responsibilities? So those things I think are essential to have in an IRP. Another thing,
Yeah.
I guess, oh, sorry about that.
No,
Another
go ahead.
thing, third-party contacts, whether it be government entities, if you have to contact the FBI, if you need to contact your vendors or partners, those certainly need to be added into your IRP.
No, that's a great summary. And you hit upon some of the, I guess, more common or more frequent types of cyber attacks that might occur and how you should, plan accordingly. It's impossible to really account for every possible thing that could happen to a business, whether it be some very strange cyber attack or some physical type situation to the infrastructure itself. You try to put all these different things together and account for as many scenarios as you can, many different things that could be happening, but you can't account for everything. But having that plan where you've got those most common things, like you said, ransomware, maybe distributed denial of service attack, maybe website defacement, maybe someone is coming to you from the help desk saying, we just had a user report that they can't get to their files and they seem to be encrypted. Having some of the basic things of what do I need to do based on those types of scenarios that are happening in real time can really cut down on the panic, can cut down on the length of time it takes to restore operations. It's very important to have that plan. And to your point about making sure the cyber services incident response team is aware of the plan. And if you think about the CSIRT or the incident response team, who do you typically see as far as the various members that might make up that team? It may go beyond just the technical staff. Would you say that's true?
Yeah, certainly. You have financial. If ransomware needs to be paid, you need to be talking about who's talk to the CFO to see if the money can be freed up. Legal, you definitely want to seek legal counsel in that. Human resources would be one, but definitely IT administrators, your CISOs, CIOs, and certainly everybody on your cybersecurity team. You can also empower your IT administrators as well so that they can kind of backfill maybe in some of those situations.
Sure. I mean, you need to have, even in the plan itself, who has the capability to even declare an incident. In other words, if the time has come where, yes, there's something really serious afoot within the organization, whether it's some sort of cyber attack or some sort of issue with the infrastructure itself, some critical outage, not necessarily caused by a cyber event, but an outage just the same that's affecting production, affecting customers of the organization. There needs to be someone that can actually declare that incident, which should trigger the mobilization of certain things to happen that are defined within the plan. To your point there, as far as other stakeholders, Maybe it's something that involves a public announcement. Maybe it's something where the media has to be involved. So is there a spokesperson, defined within your plan that handles media relations in the event of something that must be reported? You may think, well, that would never happen in my organization. But in the case of a lot of organizations, there are situations where a press conference would be called. Someone would be, asked to speak on behalf of the company. It may be legal counsel. It may be somebody in the organization directly, but it still has to be accounted for in the plan. Is that a fair statement?
Certainly.
We'll be back with the Cybersecurity Weekly podcast after we pause for this special message. Security analysts believe cyber attacks will continue to escalate throughout 2020 and are recommending that every company, regardless of industry or size, place immediate focus on cybersecurity training and the tools that will protect you from these attacks. Did you know that you can book a cybersecurity assessment right now with Fred Cobb's team of cybersecurity engineers at InfoSystems? They will help you discover exactly where you are most vulnerable to a cyber attack and make recommendations on how to strengthen your defense in those areas. This is urgent. It's an issue that affects everyone in our community. Visit the InfoSystems website at www.infosystems.biz to request your cybersecurity assessment. Now back to the podcast.
You definitely have to have people that are outward facing, that know how to address the public, that won't step on, your company's toes whenever addressing that situation. So sometimes you might not want to have not a junior level tech or a technical person really, giving out the press data. You need somebody that's keen with public relations.
Absolutely. We talked about just a moment ago having those contact numbers for not only local law enforcement, but also for, let's say it is a cyber event, you want to report it to federal authorities, cyber crime, you feel like is happening. So have your local FBI field office maybe as a number listed in your incident response plan. So those are some of the elements that make up the plan. Let's talk about something that companies should be doing to actually test their capability, maybe testing what's in the plan to make sure it's adequate for their needs. You want to talk briefly about tabletop exercises?
Sure, yeah, just to your point, tabletop exercise. We want to practice and practice and practice so that, whenever the time comes, this isn't the first time we did it, right? We don't be running around with our head on fire, and this being the first time. Just think about a sporting team. They practice and practice, just getting ready for that game time. Or you run fire drills, so when a fire happens, someone's not getting burned up over in a room, so those type of things you definitely need to practice on to vet out, to make sure that it all runs smooth.
Yeah, you're perfectly right. There's going to come a time where someone's going to be yelling, "This is not a drill. This is really happening." So that preparedness is uber important. Around the tabletop exercises, and we conduct a lot of these at InfoSystems for various companies, but we do something that's realistic to the organization. In other words, if you're coming in, you're creating a scenario that could really happen to a business. You get the key players, maybe the incident response team, the entire team or a subset of the team that will be involved. You craft a scenario in advance. You work through the scenario. You may provide a little bit of offshoots, getting off tangent just a little bit to see the engaged reaction of the ability for the incident response team members to think on their feet. Mm-hmm. But you're not really looking at it to embarrass anyone. You're looking at it to, okay, we're doing this great. This area, we need a little bit of shoring up. Oh, we missed this in the plan. We need to include that. Make sure we do a new revision of the plan based on this particular exercise. If you're doing those, once or twice a year, a lot of times that's just the most frequent that you can do them based on everyone's availability. But even once or twice a year is better than nothing, right?
Sure, certainly.
So highly encourage either you have someone come in as a third party like we do and facilitate those types of simulated incidents, or you take the initiative inside your own company to take a half a day, take a partial day and work through a scenario or two throughout the calendar year, and it really pays off.
Certainly, and I think if when doing those scenarios, if you're just doing it by yourself as a company, if you find a situation where you go, man, I do not know what to do here, or gosh, that's a success. That's a win for you ultimately in that tabletop exercise. You found out what you didn't know, and then we can go about correcting that.
Yeah, absolutely. In some businesses, having an incident response plan is really not an option. If you look at the mandates through the payment card industry for PCI compliance, if there's something happening that could expose credit card numbers, that's certainly considered a huge cyber incident in the eyes of the payment card industry, data security standard, and the card brands and the payment processors, everyone involved in that chain. So it's mandated, if you have a certain number of transactions that occur, credit card transactions, that you must have an up-to-date incident response plan. We touched on it briefly at the beginning, but just in passing, you also need to have a good process internally for your employees to flag potential incidents without fear of any repercussion, without fear of, if it turns out to be a false issue, without fear of employee embarrassment of any sort. So could that be a part of your incident response plan? Yes. Could it also be part of a policy or just part of the employee handbook? Absolutely. Absolutely. So make sure you've got that additional mechanism in place with so many things happening. I mean, just yesterday here at InfoSystems, one of our executives was the intended target of some whaling, some executive phishing going on. Is a very sophisticated type of attack. They had to have open source intelligence about this particular individual, even to craft the message that was received via email, which had they not been savvy, had they not been trained to detect phish campaigns, have we not had a mechanism in place for reporting potential incidents, this person may have very well fallen victim, which could have had potentially drastic results on our business network. So having that training, having that mechanism for reporting incidents, that's really part of an overall incident response program. Is that fair?
Yes, certainly fair. And just to your point, that open line of communications, in all reality, your end users can be some of your biggest assets when it comes time to security. They see things, they're experiencing things, they're touching each endpoint, and if you can have them funneling information back to you and your cyber team, then that's a game changer. For them to be educated on what to look out for, they're really your eyes and ears. So it's kind of that see something, say something mentality that we all watch our back here, and we all have a vested interest in making our company work and profitable.
Absolutely. Well, let's go ahead and wrap up this topic for today, Garrett. I really appreciate you hanging out with me, providing some great insight. For those of you out there listening that are worried, well, how do I start to even craft an incident response plan? InfoSystems can assist in that. There are examples out there that you may be able to take and modify that you might be able to find out on the web, but it's really important not just to take a vanilla flavored incident response plan that you may find via Google and stamp your company logo on it and say, wow, here's our incident response plan. It really needs to be customized to your specific environment with that information we've talked about today. So if you need any assistance in that, we can certainly help. Also, test that plan. If you have it, make sure that your team is prepared in the event that you really need to declare an incident and work through containment and eradication or whatever the particular incident might be. But certainly be prepared and make sure you have that plan on hand. So thanks everyone for tuning in. We appreciate your patronage. Thank you so much. And for those of you that haven't watched any of the previous episodes about the CSC controls that we've been doing, please go back into the archive and either catch them on audio or watch the video. Hopefully you'll find some good information there that you can apply in your business environment. We encourage you to do so. And thank you again for tuning in. We'll see you next time. Goodbye.